Joining us now is Senior Editor-at-Large at Newsweek, Josh Hammer. Josh, great to see you. Donald Trump has confirmed that the United States will engage directly with Iran in a high-level meeting happening this Saturday. Trump says that he hopes the talks will be successful because we're getting into dangerous territory. This is what he had to say.
We're having direct talks with Iran, and they've started. It'll go on Saturday. We have a very big meeting, and we'll see what can happen. And I think everybody agrees that doing a deal would be preferable to doing the obvious. And the obvious is not something that I want to be involved with, or frankly, that Israel wants to be involved with if they can avoid it. So we're going to see if we can avoid it. But it's getting to be very dangerous territory. And hopefully those talks will be successful. And I think it would be in Iran's best interest if they are successful. We hope that's going to happen.
The obvious being bombing Iran. Do you have confidence that the talks will be successful?
No, of course not, Gabriella. I mean, you're talking here about a fanatical, theocratic, Islamist dictatorship in Iran. I mean, this is a regime that is totally nuts. I mean, this is a regime that literally chants in their legislature every single day, death to Israel, death to America. They call Israel the little Satan, America the big Satan. You know, Gabriella, I was giving a talk in Washington, D.C. last summer, and someone came up to me after my talk and said that he actually grew up in Iran. He actually was in Tehran until he was 16 years old. Then his family fled to the United States. He told me that literally every day in school when he was growing up, they made them all put their hand on their heart and solemnly vow that they would do all that they could on that day to bring the death and destruction to the little Satan of Israel and the big Satan of America. They actually genuinely believe this. This is regime ideology. This is not a cold, calculating people there. They are theocratic Islamists who are motivated by all that entails. So no, I absolutely do not have any confidence whatsoever that this is going to go particularly well. I don't have a huge issue with sitting down with them one final time, two final times, whatever there. I mean, when Donald Trump's, is issuing threats, the kind of threats that he is issuing today at the White House with Netanyahu there, those are not empty threats there. So he's making very clear that there's going to be a military option on the table. Yeah. So at this point there, I don't see a whole lot of downside to sitting with them, but I would be remiss if I said that I think it's going to go anywhere in a positive direction, just given the nature of who they're dealing with here, frankly.
Yeah, of course. Well, Trump said the US military campaign against the Houthis in Yemen has been very successful, and Pete Hegseth was very strong on this today, insisting that it is only going to get worse for the Houthis until they stop shooting at our ships.
Whether it's underground facilities, weapons manufacturing, bunkers, troops in the open, air defense assets, we are not going to relent. And it's only to get more unrelenting until the Houthis declare they will stop shooting at our ships. And we've been very clear with the Iranians as well. They should not continue to provide support to the Houthis, and that message has been made very clear. So we have a lot more options and a lot more pressure to apply, and we know, because we see the reports, how devastating this campaign has been in them.
And this comes after Donald Trump shared a video on his social media account of the US strike on Yemen, claiming that they will never sink our ships again. What do you make of the comments out of the White House today?
So first of all, Pete Hegseth is awesome, isn't he? I mean, talk about just a guy who gets it. I was grinning ear to ear when I first heard that he was going to be named Secretary of Defense there, and I think he's off to a great start thus far. A guy who is really turning around the Pentagon. The Pentagon is a bureaucracy here in the United States that has been ailing, that has been hurting. They have suffered massive recruitment shortfalls over the past few years. There was a crisis of morale within the Pentagon, within the armed forces. Pete Hegseth is the perfect guy to turn this around. And I continue just to be deeply pleased with the job that he is doing. When it comes to the Houthi threat, specifically there, Donald Trump means what he says, and he's the kind of guy who, again, he's not mincing words. When he talks, he is also going to very much walk the walk. And, there's been something of a debate within certain pockets of let's call it the America First movement, the MAGA movement here, as to whether or not Donald Trump's strikes on the Houthis are consistent with his general foreign policy worldview, to which I emphatically answer yes. I think it is deeply consistent there. It reminds me, frankly, of when he took out Qasem Soleimani. the arch IRGC Iranian terrorists at the Baghdad, Iraq airport back in January of 2020. Donald Trump's foreign policy is very simple. He's not looking to start wars. He's not looking to mess with you. But if you mess with the United States, then he's going to punch back twice as hard. Qasem Soleimani learned that the hard way, and now the Houthis are learning the same lesson the hard way as well. The Houthis have fired on hundreds and hundreds of ships, many of which are either flagged by the United States or are going towards the United States as far as like where the actual destination of the commercial products on board are. And this has a tangible effect on the American consumer, especially given all the trade war issues. Right now, the Houthis are only going to increase prices. So it's not just a local issue. It's very much a global issue as well, given that 10 to 20% roughly of global commerce flows there on the Red Sea, to which the Houthis have taken this hostage. So Donald Trump sees the American interest. He's acting in accordance with that interest there. And I look forward to seeing what he does from here.
Well, on the global issues, the trade war between the US and China is on the verge of becoming even more hostile. Let's talk about those tariffs. Donald Trump's issued another threat to Beijing. Now, the president threatened an additional 50% tariffs on China. He said if China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, the United States will impose additional tariffs on China of 50% effective April 9th. Additionally, all talks with China concerning their requested meetings with us will be terminated. Negotiations with other countries, which have also requested meetings, will begin taking place immediately. I mean, Josh, wow. How do you see this playing out? As Trump mentioned there, it also comes after the White House said that 50 other nations have now reached out to negotiate with Donald Trump, but he's not backing down.
You know, Gabriella, I've been talking about this in my own show, The Josh Hammer Show. So I think a lot of people think of MAGA and America First as being an immigration-centric movement. And let's be very clear. I mean, it is. I am not disputing that premise there. When Donald Trump came down that gilded escalator back in the summer of 2015 at Trump Tower there, we all remember that speech talking about how Mexico sending rapists. I mean, there's been a lot of immigration focus to MAGA and President Trump's general political success going back over a decade now. Having said that, Donald Trump on a personal level, him as a man, you can go back 45, 50 years to find Donald Trump saying the stuff that he is still saying today about tariffs and about China in particular. He has always understood properly that China is America's #1 threat to the United States when it comes to geopolitics, when it comes to diplomacy, military, and yes, when it comes to the economy as well there. He has always been a dissenter to his class, to his fellow ultra millionaires and billionaires when it comes to this idea that bringing China into the fold of Western-style nations, when it comes to China's ascension to the World Trade Organization in 2001. Donald Trump dissented time and time again. He's been proven right because China has taken our manufacturing jobs here in the United States. They are manipulating our currency. They are hoarding all sorts of our very important equipment when it comes to the PPE, the personal protective equipment that we need at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. They have a shockingly high control over the very ingredients that go into Americans' basic, everyday, day-to-day pharmaceuticals. And perhaps even most troubling, right now, they are threatening in increasingly bellicose fashion to do a full-scale amphibian invasion of the island of Taiwan, which is home to Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, the globe's #1 semiconductor manufacturer, on which Americans are deeply reliant when it comes to everything from our iPhones to our F-35 fighter jets. So, I mean, we've really put ourselves in a pickle, a massive pickle when it comes to this idea that economic liberalization with China could somehow lead to political liberalization. This was this utter academic gobbledygook that was peddled by elites of both parties for decades on end. It has catastrophically failed. Donald Trump, to his great credit, presciently saw that decades before it failed, and he's continuing to put in those policies in place to try to reverse the calamitous failures of globalization run amok. So, you know, people can quibble with parts of the broader tariff policy. He's obviously slapped tariffs on a lot of nations besides China. But when it comes to China in particular, I say go for it. I mean, it is time to duke this out. It is time to try to rebalance our trade with our nation's #1 geopolitical foe this century, which is very clearly the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're not alone in that view. Look, big news in the US today. The Supreme Court has cleared the way for the Trump administration to restart deportations of alleged Venezuelan gang members. In a 5-4 ruling, the court allowed the use of the rarely invoked Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to remove alleged members of the gang without a hearing. Trump wrote on social media, the Supreme Court has upheld the rule of law in our nation by allowing a president, whoever that may be, to be able to secure our borders and protect our families and our country itself. A great day for justice in America. Josh, this also sends a very clear message to those who are in the country illegally.
Yeah, and it's kind of shocking in a way that the Supreme Court even has to rule this way. I mean, this really ought to be so obvious that it kind of baffles the mind that the court would even need to call in the first place there. But I mean, give credit where credit is due. The court did rule the right way, albeit it was a 5-4 decision. I mean, it really should have been a 9-0 decision. And I will have to say that I find it troubling that Amy Coney Barrett, one of Trump's first 3 picks from his first term, continues to join the liberals in a lot of high-profile cases. That continues to be a trend that I'm very closely following there. But this is bread and butter executive power. I mean, Article 2 of our Constitution establishes the executive branch and defines the executive power as being what the president wields. And the executive power includes, going back 2+ centuries here in American case law, the ability to secure and enforce this nation's immigration laws. If you are here in the United States as an alien, by the way, this applies whether you are an illegal actually or also a legal alien, you don't have a due process right to remain in this country against the national will. If the American people, through their elected officials in the Congress and the executive branch, decide that we don't want you here anymore, we can deport you essentially at any time for any reason whatsoever. This is known as the plenary power doctrine in constitutional law. It was taught to me in law school. It's a fairly well-known legal doctrine. So again, I find it baffling that the courts even feel a need to get involved here in the first place. I think the executive so clearly has this ability there. Good for Donald Trump, though. It's a good win. Frankly, I think there's going to be a lot more to come because on the law, Donald Trump continues to be more correct than his very outspoken, albeit very incorrect critics.
I have to ask you about these protesters who have been out over the weekend protesting against Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And I just love this when reporters actually go out and speak to some of them, find out why they are there, why they're holding up the signs that they're holding, because some of them accidentally reveal that they have no idea what they're even protesting. Take a look at this.
So what makes Trump a fascist? What makes Trump a fascist?
He does things without
You gotta talk loud. I don't have my mic on.
I'm not really good into interviews.
Sorry?
He just does everything he wants and not following laws or he's a convicted felon, that's all I know.
What's that?
So paper gave me, yeah.
Who gave you that?
The people that gave me the sign. It's a free sign.
Oh, someone gave you the sign, and then they gave you the handout. So are you reading it now to try to answer the question?
Yeah, but I mean...
Can I see that? Can you hold that up?
I'm just not...
I'm just curious.
Maybe you can have it.
I can have it?
Yeah, you can have it.
Alrighty. So where did you get the sign?
All the way in the gatekeeper's house.
Okay.
Yeah, it was cool.
And that's another one? They gave you 2 pieces of paper?
Yeah.
Can I have that one too?
Yes, you can have both.
Oh, okay. So what brings you guys out here today?
Just because I saw people were hanging out with people.
Yeah, same thing as everyone else, executive overreach.
Because they're very angry about what's going on, about Trump and fascism trying to take this wonderful country with all these wonderful people, and there are great chants going on. Immigrants welcome here, trans people are welcome here, trans kids are welcome here. This is Massachusetts, kid. Get your hands off of it. All right, I'll say hi some more later, if I can manage to post this. Bye!
Yeah, it really gives you an insight into who these people are that are turning out at these protests, and some of them just have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, talk about a bunch of psychopaths. I mean, psychopaths combined with paid protesters. I mean, this is a well-known tactic of these astroturfed left-wing movements, whether it was the Black Lives Matter movement back in the summer of George Floyd in 2020, whether it's a lot of the pro-Hamas stuff on university campuses here in the U.S. since October 7th, and now we see this. it's not all AstroTurf. Some of it is genuine grassroots, but a shockingly high percentage of this is totally fabricated from the top on down. Paid protesters continue to be a very real thing there, and a lot of people like this guy, whether they're paid or not, they just get caught up in the noise there, and yeah, they have no freaking idea whatsoever what they're talking about. By the way, this is not a phenomenon limited simply to the left in the United States. The left all across the globe seems to have a problem with actually knowing what they are protesting. I think back to a couple of years ago when Israel, prior to October 7, was having its whole judicial reform debate there. And a lot of the anti-Netanyahu left-wing protesters there similarly had these street interviews, and they would ask these protesters, so what exactly do you object to when it comes to the proposed judicial reform? They couldn't answer. They literally could not answer other than that we hate Netanyahu. Same thing here. They have no idea what they're protesting other than that they hate Donald Trump. They pick out these individuals. They choose to hate them for nonsensical, personality-driven reasons there, Gabriella, there, but they have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to actual policy, substantive issues, or anything like that there. You know, frankly, there was a Supreme Court opinion 10 years ago here in the U.S. where the late, great Justice Anthony Scalia was mocking the cartoonish way that the majority opinion in this case was written. And what he said was that if I were to put words in this order, I would have the sense of shame and self-awareness to hide my head in a bag. And frankly, watching that video that I just watched with you, this protester who has no idea what he's talking about, that same line kind of comes back to me. If I were that person, I would hope that I would have enough sense of shame to hide my head in a bag for a very long time.
100%. And it does just remind me of those pro-Hamas protests that we saw take place in America, around the world. People don't know what river, what sea they're talking about. It's just embarrassing. And that's why these reporters need to go out and actually speak to some of the protesters and find out what on earth they're doing there. They can't even tell us. Now, Kamala Harris is back with a message, which the left-wing media is, of course, describing as powerful. But let's take a listen to her speak at this Leading Women Defined Summit.
Fear has a way of being contagious. Yeah. Okay. When one person has fear, it has a way of spreading to those around them and spreading. And we are witnessing that, no doubt. But I say this also, my dear friends, courage is also contagious. Courage is also contagious.
Josh, you inspired?
You know, I'm not sure how tasty that word salad is that you just spat out there, but I would imagine that it does not go down particularly well. I mean, Kamala Harris has to be the cringiest modern phenomenon in all of contemporary American politics. I mean, she has consistently failed upwards every single time of her career, from a local prosecutor in the San Francisco Bay Area to being Attorney General of California to U.S. Senator from California to Vice President of the United States to running as the nominee for president after the bloodless coup of Joe Biden. I mean, she has failed upwards every single time, and I use that choice of words deliberately because she's literally failing upwards. She's not been successful in literally any of the jobs that I just named, yet she continues to get promotion until finally she was stopped, praise be to God, by Donald Trump this past November. The question for Kamala Harris is, will she give it a go again in the year 2028? And the current polling here in the United States shows that if she were to throw her hat into the ring, she probably would be the frontrunner, which to me indicates that the Democratic Party has learned nothing. They have learned absolutely, positively nothing. You couple what we just heard from Kamala Harris with Barack Obama speaking this past weekend at Hamilton College in upstate New York, a similar quip from Jimmy Carville, the old Clinton advisor, who as recently as a year or two ago was starting to sound a little sober and moderate, and now he's basically comparing Trump to the brown shirts of the Nazis back in the 40s there. I mean, this party has lost their everlasting mind, and they have a long way to go to pull themselves out of the abyss. Frankly, again, to kind of go back to this whole point about hiding your head in a bag, they're not showing the sense of self-awareness there. You got to recognize what you're doing wrong. You got to get over your sense of denial in order to start to get back to the middle there. And I'm not seeing it right now from anyone, from Kamala Harris to Barack Obama or any of these clowns, frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. The left have not learnt their lesson, and neither have the mainstream media. Sonny Hostin on The View believes that there are plenty of Trump voters out there that now wish they got Kamala Harris. Take a look at this.
I bet you there are a lot of people that voted for Trump that wish Kamala Harris
a lot of
was in the
people
White
who
House.
didn't vote.
Josh, if you want fake news, just put on The View.
Yeah. This reminds me of Sonny Hostin a couple of days after the election this past November. She said that the only reason that Donald Trump beat Kamala Harris was due to lingering sexism and racism in America. And at that time, that statement was viewed as so outlandish on the set of The View that it even got Alyssa Farah to kind of shriek up and say, that's not true. That's not right. And Alyssa Farah was the token former Trump White House person there. She's the quote unquote center right person. She's not center right in any sense of the term there. You know, in order to tick her off, you've really gone too far. But I mean, who watches The View at this point? I genuinely wonder what they're actually. I genuinely find myself wondering whenever I see these clips go viral from people like Sunny Hostin, sometimes Joy Behar, or Whoopi Goldberg. I genuinely ask, who in the world is actually watching it? I mean, what kind of ridiculous self-induced echo chamber are the people that are tuning into this absolute drivel that is lacking anything remotely resembling coherent or cogent analysis, anything remotely resembling a single scintilla of sophisticated or intellectual thought there? It's just total absolute garbage. And frankly, if I were the producer, again, to kind of use our theme of our conversation, Gabriella, I would want to hide my head in a bag for a little while because this is just absolute drivel that is going out here on American television.
Yeah, that absolutely sums it up. Senior editor at large at Newsweek, Josh Hammer, thank you so much for making the time to speak to us here on Power Hour. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.